the hardest part for me to learn is that if I'm purely discretionary and I don't have a target, then I'm stuck sitting here twiddling my thumbs and twiddling my thumbs and going, gosh, I hope it gets somewhere good.
Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email, spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com, and that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. Disclaimer time. This is where I tell everyone to lighten up. It's just a podcast. Trading is like that roller coaster at the amusement park. Thrilling, unpredictable, and potentially stomach-churning. What works for one person might leave another clutching their hat in the wind. Our hosts and guests, they're awesome, knowledgeable, full of insights, but we're not financial advisors. So don't rush to make any investment decisions based solely on our banter. Always consult with a professional or do your own research. Plus, let's face it, we like to have fun, laugh, enjoy the trading ride together. It's all in the name of good podcasting fun. So remember, take it easy, don't bet the farm, and keep your seatbelts on at all times. Thank you for listening. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the China Shop, home of the Bandit Traders podcast. My name is Kyle, and joining me tonight, I've got our Director of Guest Procurement, Bear Goes Long. Bear must have been slacking at your job because it's just the two of us tonight.
Hey, some weeks it's tough. It's tough. With Bob off playing the Masters. What are we gonna do?
Yeah, I saw the 2-pound steaks that they're eating over there. Was it Scotty Scheffler is in charge of, I think? 2-pound ribeyes.
Oh,
Good
man.
Lord.
That just sounds heavenly. I mean, I just had an 18-ounce prime rib, so I'm not complaining.
See, I can't do the prime rib. Prime rib is I'd rather have a ribeye. I don't know, it's like a prime rib, but you get that little bit of smoke ring, but then the rest of it tastes kind of bland to me.
I
Change my mind. What am I missing?
Fresh horseradish.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, that's it. All right, let's see what we got for show news here. Graham Glover from Price Squawk. He's going to be on this week's guest episode, and after that, I gotta look at the name here. The real Ariel, I think his name is on Twitter. Someone that Joe set me up with on the Discord. So trying to work out when that one's going to be. That'll probably be in the next week or two. He's launching a Discord server, trades with a lot of like well-known names. So a lot of high recommendations from him. Looking forward to sitting down with that guy. And then the other thing I wanted to say too is that guest episodes are probably going to start slowing down a little bit. I don't know if I made that announcement sooner or earlier, but like honestly, just been getting kind of tired of going through like all the, what do you call it? Like the background checks, like trying to like filter out all of the
all
the snake oil salesmen.
The snake oils, the grifters, the scammers, the con men. Yeah. The Lambo photo idiots. Yeah.
Some of them still manage to sneak through, but man, like I'm just getting tired of dealing with that. And I'd rather just stick to either the people that I've talked to that I know are good and know what they're talking about and they got our best interests at heart, or listen to you guys and get recommendations that way. So if there's anybody that you know of that you want me to talk to, please send it my way because I don't want to do the research anymore.
Well, actually, that reminds me. I just signed up for a class somewhere towards the end of the month with Rich Friesen.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Which class is that?
You have to ask me that right now.
I know, right?
I think it's just a Mind Over Markets class. He's running it. He said something on Twitter X about, this is going to be the last Mind Over Markets class, which doesn't make any sense to me, but okay. But I saw that and I was like, sign me up. I haven't talked to Rich in like 2 years.
Okay, so when does that start?
It's a Mind Metrics.
Mind Metrics. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm going through that. Okay. Yeah. If you're going to start going through that, we should start a little group chat and do it together.
Yeah.
In fact,
definitely.
we can. I can make a Discord channel if you want to do it on there too.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I'm up for that, man. I've
Yeah, that could
been
be fun.
I've been trying to get back into it. Just I've been finding I think I need that accountability. Like if I'm relying on myself to do things, I'm not doing a great job of making sure I do those things.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've been struggling a lot with is that it's not really a fine line, but I want to call it a fun line between strategy hopping
Yeah,
and legitimately going, okay, I've matured my process to point XYZ. I need something else to help, keep pushing me in a positive direction. Um,
I think we were talking beforehand that you are working on learning a new process, and I kind of want to get into that at some point. But you just started talking about something there that I kind of want to dig into a little bit deeper too, which is
mhm.
the strategy hopping portion of it.
No, that leads
Yeah,
into that discussion because that was a big part of the thought process for me.
yeah. I was kind of going through something similar with that this past couple weeks, where it's less of feeling like I need something new and more like I need to take what I've learned and define it into something that is more. I don't know if it's repeatable, actionable, easier to work with, like easier to see, easier to follow. Like just putting it to a plan, I think, is more like don't
Hmm.
restart over with everything. Take all the things that I've learned and package it into something that is kind of like taking from all those things and putting it together, like Frankensteining it together, like Flary likes to say.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I found the whole trading growth process. I've oscillated between the extremes of, you know, uh, we've mostly talked about my mental, emotional process
Yeah,
side of, I realize it's like, oh crap, I've got this huge weakness over here and I need to work on this shit. And, why is this stuff happening?
right.
And then, sometimes I'll get a little too overloaded, too overwhelmed in some of that stuff. And it's like, okay, let's just go work on the trading strategy and, go back and sit down and spent a lot of time working with a couple of mentors. Flurry, obviously, I've worked with a tremendous amount over the last few years, and Aaron.
Hmm.
Um, and they both have, reasonably well defined processes for developing levels and strategies around those levels, and learned those and applied those. Um, and they fit to varying degrees my personality.
Right.
And then inevitably what happens is I'll start to get in there, I'll find some success, and then I'll have mental, emotional crap bubble back up and, throw a wrench in the works. And I have to sit down and go, okay, let's go back and work on that stuff.
I'm actually in the
And
process of trying to dig the wrench out of the gears right now.
yeah, I feel like it's a, climb a mountain, um, the switchbacks.
Yeah.
You got to go up
Yeah.
this way for a little while, fix these things. Okay, now you can shift back the other way, go up that way for a while.
So it'd be nice
Um,
if it was like that and less like it feels like you're sprinting up, straight up to 300 feet and then falling backwards 175 feet before you catch. You're just trying to catch yourself before you fall back past where you started.
yeah, or even you just get that greedy of I want it, I want it, I want it. So you run up the hill
Yes.
as
Yes.
fast as you can, and you go, 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 and then you run out of breath and you just collapse into a puddle on the ground, and you're like,
so so here's something I started doing this before you guys jumped on. I was looking back through at like some of the stats, specifically in my live account because I hadn't really checked through those in a while, and I was actually really happy to see that I'd gotten that account positive for the first time in quite some time. Um,
nice.
yeah, but I was looking through like the stats on there, and I like what really stood out to me was the winners and losers. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick because I just kind of want to talk about the real data here. Uh,
Always good to have real data to look at.
I know, right? So it was the average profit and loss I was looking at, and do you remember? Do you still have Sierra charts? Are you still using that, or are you on anything something different now?
I dropped off of Sierra charts last fall. I needed to really narrow my focus,
Yeah,
and kind of strip all the charts away. And part of that process was to say, okay, let's strip all the tools away.
yeah,
Um, and I went back to saying, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to trade on the X platform, Top Step X,
yeah.
and only trade there, and take away all the excuses for everything else, so that I can just focus on levels and price action.
Well, here's the interesting thing that I pulled out. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of like your trade stats on CR charts, it'll show you consecutive
Hmm.
winners, consecutive losers, and then the
Yep.
frequencies, and then the average profit and loss of those. And what really stood out was like consecutive winners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like the average profit was nearly double what the average loss of the consecutive losers was.
Yeah.
And that like that's I'm onto it. Like that's what I want to see. That's good. I need to lean
Hmm.
into this. So really now what I want to go back through and look and see what I was doing throughout this last, since January when I started collecting all these stats to see like what am I having success? What are the things that are working and how can I lean into that some more? And I think a lot of it's going to revolve around doing stuff with the OR. For me, particularly, I like the 15-minute OR, maybe the 5-minute. I haven't quite
Hmm.
decided. I do like doing some stuff with the 30-second for looking for breakouts and stuff, but there's going to be a lot of, I think, going back to the drawing board and trying to work through like what kind of repeatable system can I put into place utilizing these elements that I like and that I've seen success with.
Yeah.
That
Uh,
But it's interesting that I was kind of like leaning back. I wanted to go back to the OR, and I'm guessing your new process, based on who you said that you're working with, probably has something to do with that.
it has a heck of a lot to do with it. Yeah, I mean, I've always loved trading the open and looking at it, but I never really did have a clean, well-defined process around that.
Hmm.
I did spend a significant amount of time after the episode with Macro Tactical,
Mm,
um, really focusing in and honing in on the 5-minute OR, which it's not a lot of people are looking there.
yeah.
Um, and I do like tracking it, and it's a really interesting. I I was trading that pretty heavily the last few months.
Hmm.
Um, I was very dedicated to. I would mark the 5-minute OR on my chart every day, and so then I could look back. During the day when we would come back towards it, it was amazing that how many inflection points you would see where it'd come down and it'd nibble off the 5-minute OR and take off again.
Yeah, especially like that first close above. Like if you're gonna get a good trending day, sometimes that one touch on the OR high low
Mhm.
can be a
And
spicy one
and the
too.
euro close.
Yeah,
The euro close loves to come back and touch the OR.
Euro close. Interesting. I don't think I've paid too much attention to that. What time is that one at?
Did 10:30 Central.
Okay.
Now that we're back in sync. So for
Yeah.
2 weeks when America did daylight stupid time early and than the rest of the year or the rest of the world, um,
Can we get a
we were out of sync, and so the euro close was another hour later.
hot take
Now
here?
they're
Could we just get rid of that altogether? Can we all just go to a standardized time?
can we just go back to standard time and keep it so that, solar noon is at noon? I mean, words have meaning last time I checked.
Yeah, see, I'm of the other side of that. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning when I get up. I don't care what the clock says. It doesn't matter to me. If it's 3 in the sun, then that's the time I get up. That's when I get up. Well, whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I would
whatever.
just like that sunlight to align a little better. But we're both in pretty northern latitudes, so
Yeah.
that swing between summer and winter is a lot more severe than people who are
Yeah, it goes
farther
the wrong
south.
way. It goes the wrong way. Why aren't we trying to smooth things out so it's the same in the winter and the same in summer? No, instead we're making summer days longer and winter days shorter. It makes no sense.
You're not making them longer or shorter.
No, you're not
You're
even
just
doing that. Yeah.
lying about what you're
Right.
calling noon.
Right.
That's it. That's it. It's just this collective hallucination, this lie that says, "Oh, we're going to decide that 1 p.m. is noon."
Right.
What?
Okay, now get back on track. I'll tell you what I learned from Macro Tactical in that conversation. uh, no, the thing that stood out to me in that conversation, we talked about how he likes to add maniacally once he starts to see something go his way.
Mm, mm,
That
mm.
was something that I spent a lot of time trying to get better at, and I think I've actually got to the point now where I can finally start adding to trades where I used to be terrified of it. But
That is the most brutal skill to learn.
oh my god, the hardest thing is just saying, "Yep, it's come back to break even. We're wrong now. Let's stop trying to fight for this trade again."
Mm-hmm.
That anger of like, "Oh, it hasn't come back to my original entry. I should still have that one on if I hadn't moved my stop." Well,
Mm-hmm.
too bad.
Okay, so this is one of those areas where the platform can really help you.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I got really serious about learning that, I was on Sierra, and Sierra was great because you can set it up for LIFO, last in, first out.
I think I finally
So
did set that up, actually.
right,
Yeah.
so you set up LIFO, and so it's like, you do some ads and it brings your average up, but then if you stop those ads out, it pushes your average back down to your
Right,
original.
right, right. And it
Now,
doesn't.
of
But
course.
but okay. Here's how trading is so weird, right? Because if you say you're up 15 points on ES, and like you try to put in an ad, and it takes out your like 5 points above your break even, or it just takes out that one that you had, right? Like you're still 80. You still captured 15 points from the original entry. But once
Mhm.
you've realized it, it's a lot harder to put that trade back on. Like, say you just accidentally hit the flatten button, you want to put it back on and then put your stop back to where it was. Very hard to do that, isn't it?
You don't. You don't.
Why not? Why is that so
If you
hard?
accidentally flatten the trade, you're done
Why is it? Why is that?
because you've lost your entry.
But what does it matter if you just re-enter at the same spot you had, even if you've?
Oh, well, because then psychologically you're staring at that
Yeah,
unrealized
right.
loss
Yeah,
because you wouldn't realized it. But that was gonna come back to your system and
that was
was
something Trader Dante talked about on a video once. He says like somebody talks about the free trade they're in. It's like, oh yeah, hit that flatten button on them and see what they do. Like just tell them, oh, it's
mhm.
no problem. Just put it back on. Put your stop where it was. Like they won't do it.
Nope.
I won't do it.
Nope.
Why is
Nope.
that? It seems like there's something there that because it shouldn't be
There
any
is.
different, right?
There is. It's no longer a free trade because you realized it. You
Right.
realized the profit out of the other one. And so, do you want to give all of that back? Merritt Black calls it a give back, but yeah.
I wonder if that's something
No.
that'd be worth throwing into the trade plan. It's like when I'm starting to feel greedy, I'm just going to flatten it out, and if I still want to put it back on, I can. But then
So
that makes it much harder to make that decision, right?
right, and you're totally you're totally violating your process though. You're putting a trade on based off of FOMO.
I'm putting it. No, I'm trying to stop myself from exercising extreme greed in
Well,
my
no, I mean
scenario.
it's just that it's like you flattened out of the trade, you flattened out of the trade. You know what? The entry's gone. It's gone. The trade's gone. Walk
Hmm.
away. Wait for the next one. It,
Interesting.
it sucks, but it's gonna save you
Hmm.
because otherwise you're entering a trade. You haven't let go of the last trade.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if your mind is stuck in the last trade, how can you take the next trade? Honestly, you're just getting revenge.
My question is, if I'm not willing to re-enter, if I just hit the flatten button because I'm feeling some trepidation, or just because I want to, or maybe I mistakenly, twitched and scratched out of a trade I didn't mean to. If I can't put it back on, then that means that maybe I shouldn't have been in that trade for as long as I was in to begin with. Then, right? I mean, that's the counterpoint argument to that.
Was that your exit point?
I'm saying in this situation, no, it wouldn't have been.
No, it wasn't your exit point. So you've already violated the trade. The trade's gone.
So you're
Let it
saying you've
go.
made the mistakes, just you're done anyway.
Own
That's
it.
2 point.
You
Yeah.
made your mistake. Own it. Walk away. Let it go.
Curious if anybody else has any thoughts on that. If you're listening, I don't think I've ever done this, but I'm going to ask for comments on that one. How do you handle that situation? What are your thoughts on that? If you scratch out of a trade that you didn't mean to, do you re-enter and put your stops back, or is the trade done, like Bear says?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you I've tried,
I
and
think I
and
have
and
too.
the only recollections I have are ending rather miserably
Yeah,
because
because it all goes
that's
back.
basically for me. That's like a short circuit to tilt.
Right.
That puts me one trade away from tilt if
Anytime
I
you're making
got already
decisions
there.
based on what your P&L is doing, you're not making good decisions. At least that's what I've found.
Well, no, you're making decisions based on your emotion
Right.
of, oh, I was in a good trade. I accidentally flattened it. Oh, I should get back in. No, you wait for your next entry point. And but that I mean that's the discipline process I'm in the middle of learning.
Right.
That's where I'm
Right.
at on my journey.
So
Um
let's talk then about the process then.
So
Well,
so
hang on. Let me just go back. Can we
yeah,
mention the name of who you're working with?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Is this something that he's doing for other people, or is this just something that?
Oh, no, no, this is very public. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, this is very public. So I was struggling with a lot of the things that actually it sounds like you're talking about of it's like, okay, come back and sit down and really learn a consistent, scalable, repeatable process around the opening range is one part.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're at it, let's go ahead and learn a process for adding. Um,
Mm.
and because adding into trades is incredibly difficult to do psychologically and emotionally and just a skill point.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time trying to learn it on my own of going, okay, focusing on that. Is this a spot that if I was flat, I would enter? Um, for me, it's like, hey, is this a good pullback point?
Mm-hmm.
This is a good pullback point that I think is a pullback and not a reversal. Okay, so that's a spot that I would enter regardless. And that's what I've done in the past, but it gets very triggering on your greed aspect, as you pointed out, because you've gone from one contract to three contracts to five contracts to 10 contracts. And now that P&L number is moving much faster,
Yeah.
especially if it's in a volatile market like the last few weeks. And it becomes very easy to let yourself get tilted unless you have a good target, a well-defined target. And this is just me.
Yeah.
So if the trade, you plan your trade, trade your plan. And so if my trade says I'm going to wait for it to pass through 57 and I'm targeting 92,
Mm-hmm.
just making numbers up. And in the middle there's a break point at 73. Again, making numbers up. Then I'm going to know, okay, my job is to take the trade at 57 and as soon as it moves in my positive direction to protect that trade.
Mm-hmm.
And if it passes through 72 and it's still got positive momentum, I want to add. And so, but I'm going to protect that ad as well. So, as soon as I put those ads in, I'm going to put stops in so that if it comes back, I'm just going to let those go.
So, oh,
But
okay. So,
my job then is to sit there and do nothing until it hits 92.
how are you protecting your ads? Talk me through that then. Are you just putting in ads or stops for the ads and leaving your original entry stop back where
Yeah.
it was?
Um,
Or are
okay.
you
So
just
I'm a,
moving the whole average up and trying to, because that's what always gets me triggered and tilted is when I ruin a great trade or a great entry with a bad ad.
right. And some of that's going to depend on your platform piece. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm immediately pulling my stop up to my new break even
Yeah.
because, the platform I'm
Yep.
in, Sierra is awesome. Sierra will treat every trade independently.
No,
So I can
I'm
have
on
my
your boat
stop.
though. I want my if I'm starting to add now, I'm putting my stops at break even, and I'm trying to add in a way that I'm keeping that average below whatever structural point that I don't want it to be testing again.
Right. So, okay. So we've gone down a few different rabbit holes right here.
Right.
Um, so where I was chasing is that for me, the hardest part for me to learn is that if I'm purely discretionary and I don't have a target, then I'm stuck sitting here twiddling my thumbs and going, gosh, I hope it gets somewhere good. Or I hope it
Hmm.
builds some structure so that I have an excuse to drag my stop up. Or I've got, some arbitrarily defined target. It's like whatever default target is for my metric. If I have a target planned in advance, so in this case, I knew when I took the trade at 57 that my goal was 92. So my stop is at 92.
Take profit.
Once I'm in the trade, the discipline, and this is the hard part, the discipline is to do nothing.
Yeah.
It either hits my target at 92 or it comes back and stops me out at 57. There's no in between.
I don't have trouble with that as much. In fact, I'm much more comfortable, I think, than the average person of putting a trade on, putting the stops in place, and just saying it's going to do what it's going to do, and I'm going to go eat lunch or something. Like, I don't mind that at
Good for
all.
you. I suck at that.
Oh,
I
really?
suck at that.
See, I find it easier
So,
to just walk away. I find it harder to sit and watch it.
yeah, I mean, and that is the stress because then you get the temptation to meddle,
Yep, yep.
and that's where I have like hilarious results where like I'll put a trade on in a practice account and be like, oh, that's a really and it's got its defined target and stops, and I'm like, oh, that's a really good trade. And I'll flip over to a different account, and then at the end of the day, I come back and I'm like, how did I make 12,000 in my practice account? Oh, because I put on this trade and I totally forgot about it, and it was a trend day, and it literally went from the open to close
Right.
for 8 hours, and caught the whole freaking trend. Oh well, gee, why didn't I do that in my real
Yeah,
account?
let's do that more often.
Yeah, in my real account.
Yeah.
Um, so where we're going here? So I really struggled a lot with some of that stuff around defined process. I feel like I've got my psychological stuff together enough in one point.
Sounds like the major missing piece for you is not having your exits really well defined.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And the discipline
Hmm.
and
But the discipline's hard to have if you don't know where your exits and entries are going to be, right?
right,
Because
right.
what do you
Plan your
discipline
trade
on?
your
Yeah.
plan. If you don't have a
Yeah.
trade plan, then what are you doing? Where
Right.
where where can you draw discipline from?
Hmm.
Um, and so one person I've been talking a lot with, well, not a lot with, but I've had several conversations with over the years is Pax.
Hmm.
And Pax has a very consistent message out to the world around traders. One of his key catchphrases is 90% of traders fail. So why would you want to trade like 90% of people? Why
Oh,
would you want to think like 90% of people?
right.
Says if you're going to be a successful trader, you have to change your thinking. Um, and and he's always sharing a lot of the things that he learned in the pit. And
He did a lot of
he's
work with Penny Lane Blaine. I remember when we
yeah,
were
yeah, him
collaborating
and
with
him
her.
and
Yeah.
Penny did a tremendous amount of work
Yeah.
together. Um, and his passion not just for trading, but really his passion for people
Hmm.
just shines through in all of that stuff. And he's one of the few people that really made that successful transition from the pit to the screens. I mean, he made tens of millions of dollars in the Nasdaq. He was the biggest Nasdaq trader. Lost it all,
Hmm.
completely lost it all. Went completely broke. At one point, he's told this story many times. At one point, him and his wife are dragging the couch cushions for quarters to buy milk for the kids,
Oof.
and he would get on the screens and he would trade he would trade the open if he traded well that day, yay, celebrate. If he didn't trade well that day, he would go drive Uber
Hmm.
to get money to keep the family fed.
History isn't just boring names and dates. It's weird, messy, and full of what were they thinking moments. The Buck Starts Here dives into the financial fiascos, questionable deals, and outright chaos that helped build America, $1 at a time. We mix in serious history from a fresh perspective, real, deep dives into the numbers and the moments that shaped the country, without the boring lecture. From presidential blunders to almost states, and the time an international war almost started over a pig, we break down the key events that made, and nearly broke, the nation. It's the fascinating, untold history you won't find in the textbooks. Subscribe to the Buck Starts Here podcast for a deeper look at presidential history that's anything but dull.
Longtime fans of the show should be familiar with the lender formerly known as Sue Pullen, and I'm pleased to announce that she's back, fresh off a rebrand and ready to help as Sue Mackey. Sue is a certified mortgage advisor at Fairway Independent Mortgage, an equal housing lender who focuses on finding the right product for you and your needs. She has over 20 years of experience helping thousands of homeowners. Whether it's purchasing, refinancing, or even a reverse mortgage, Sue will help. Sue's licensed in 36 states now, so reach out and let Sue Mackey it happen for you. The best way to reach her is just give her a call at 520-977-7904 or in an email spullen@fairwaymc.com. Fairway Independent Mortgage has an MLS number of 2289. Sue Mackey has an MLS number of 206048. That email again, spullen@fairwaymc.com. And that phone number is 520-977-7904. Shoot Sue an email and let her know she needs to update that address. Yeah.
So he's really, walked through the fire and climbed back up and built back up successfully.
Have you managed to convince him to do one of their humanity episodes yet? Because it sounds like we really need to get him on there.
I would love to. I'd love to talk to him. I'd love to have Cleo talk to him and do one of those episodes. But he has built a screen process around the processes that he learned in the pit.
Yeah.
And those processes are entirely based around the opening range. The opening range, as defined by the CME and as defined by this pit committee, is 30 seconds. And he will never hesitate to tell somebody that there is only one opening range. It's 30 seconds. It's defined by the
So
CME.
he
Go
doesn't
look
like
it
my
up.
15-minute OR?
No, 15 minutes is something else. And
Yeah.
the 30-minute is auction market theory and I'm sorry, volume profile.
Right. So I need to think of a different name, otherwise he'll never talk to us.
No. Just don't ask him about other ORs.
Yeah.
It's pretty entertaining. There's been some spaces recently that you can go back and listen to. They were recorded that had those conversations. Okay, but he has a very, very well-defined process around trading the OR. And based off of, moves through the R, let's take this. And he's been pretty public about, you put on a 4 lots, everything's in 4s. You put on a 4 lot coming out of the trade, and then depending on the ADR, ATR, you pay for that trades at 4 points or 10 points or 15 points, depending on how much volatility there is.
Yeah.
And so you take 1 lot off at 4 points. But also what you're doing is that as soon as the trade is moving in your favor, you put on a break-even stop. So if it ever comes back to you, you're out for, a haircut and a scratch.
Yeah.
And he's even said sometimes he goes, I don't bother looking at my stats because, my win percentage is probably 10%, but who cares?
Depends on how you define your win percentage then at that point too, right?
Right. But he's talking about scratches. Scratches don't count.
So
is what he's trying to teach.
Look at what 2-Year Flipper just recently posted on his stats. It's something similar to that. I think he said he makes on like 14%, 8 to 14%, and he loses on 6%.
8%. 8% of his trades make money.
But that 8% difference between his winners and losers is where all that money is made. Everything else is a scratch. So lots and lots of scratches. That seems to be a running theme between some of these old pit traders. It's that they're not afraid to scratch and they'll do it quick.
Yeah, Jedi Marcus told that to me years ago. He goes, scratches just don't count. And he says, in the pet, you don't even want to think about how many scratches we took. It just doesn't matter. So you come in and you pay for the trade and you have a target, and where those targets are, that's deep math that PAX only shares once you get much deeper into the learning process.
Well, we said we wouldn't spill any proprietary secrets, so yeah.
Right, and I'm very early into this journey, and you and I know other people that are in the Discord with PAX, so we can talk about that when it's not being recorded. But this system on a very, very rough level, because again, I'm just early in the learning stages, but it's about you take the trade out of the OR, you pay for the trade, you have a defined profit, but you don't take it all off. You take some of it off, so you're going to realize some of those gains, and but keep at least a runner on there, and then somewhere in there you'll have another level where you'll add to that trade. So you'll add to that trade, but as soon as it moves in favor, you bring the stop for that trade to your entry. You still keep your original stop for your original entry. And like Sierra will let you have multiple stops.
Yeah.
I'm about to switch back to Sierra because of this, but yeah. So Spoiler alert, either that or motor wave,
Yeah.
different discussion. Um, but what you do is you just keep adding in and compounding. So I had a trade last week was as I worked through these levels and I realized profits and I added in. So, I might go in and, I might have 3 contracts in and I hit a level, I add 4, I take 1 off, so now I've got 6 going, and I hit another one and I add 4, so now I've got 10 going. And, um, I had one trade where we had a nice little trend move, and as it worked through the levels, I was up to 20 micros.
Jeez.
Um,
And this in
and
volatility too?
yeah, 20
God
micros that
damn.
went 20 micros that went significantly in my favor, and actually, um, I had I fortunately, I'd had the target and oh gosh, that target was really nicely defined because basically it hit the target, it was going down. I think the target was at like 67.
Mhm.
It hit 62 and went back up like 70 points, but I was out. I was
Yeah.
flat. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, wow, did that just really just happen?"
So let me ask you this question then. How different or how well defined is this new process you're looking at compared to what you're doing before?
I think it's much more defined in my mind. I will say that the process I was trading with Aaron was very similar.
Mhm.
Um, Aaron lays out zones on the chart, and the process that I worked with that worked really well for me with Aaron was trading zone to zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was, I'd enter based off of an exit, based off of movement through a zone.
Mhm.
It's actually very similar, and then I would target the next zone. But I would typically either get all the way out at the next zone, or I would, basically, like, drag my stop up to, just underneath of it,
Right.
just in case it pulled back. Um, and that worked very well. It's a similar style, but I didn't have that ad.
I'm just curious if there were holes that you noticed. I'm just curious if there was, like, looking back at what you know now to what you're doing before, was there something that you wish you could have gone back and, like, there's something you would have known to do beforehand? Like having better defined exits or something along those lines.
No, it really had to do with the discipline.
Yeah.
That's for me, that discipline's the huge weak point. Um,
So what improved the discipline then? Is it just the belief or the respect that you have for packs?
it has to do with that, but also, another one of his phrases that he likes to share is he says, "I'm a naturally undisciplined person. I have to
Mm-hmm.
build structure and discipline into my daily life to help me."
Yeah,
Um,
I can relate to that.
he talks about he gets up, he has the exact same morning routine. He gets up, he makes the bed every day
Hmm.
and exercises and does these things and to build that discipline. And the other thing that's very interesting and educational is while you're in the trade, if you're in no man's land,
Hmm.
he is very clear of he's either very clear about, "Hey, look, we're in the chop zone. Don't trade. Nobody trade. Nobody should be trading this. You enter here, you exit here. That's it. In between, nothing. You don't do anything." Um, you'll see that he'll very consistently he'll go into conversations. He'll go into research. He'll start asking people, "Hey, talk to me about this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this part of the process." And
So he does a good job of distracting people when it's not time to be trading. Kind of like
right,
what we
because
do
he's
in
distracting
yeah, yeah,
himself.
yeah, yeah.
And I mean, a lot of these conversations, I swear these are conversations that these people were having in the pit. They were having these same conversations in the pit 30 years ago, about, "Hey, where do you want to go to dinner? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, did you check out this restaurant?" Those kind of conversations that you could see them standing in the pit and going, "Okay, we're in between my price levels. I really don't care what's happening here."
Right, right.
And so that's learning for me. There's a huge challenge there of learning to not care. when
Yeah.
prices between levels, and that's go back to Sean and urge surfing.
Right. Yeah.
Just sitting there and watching and knowing, okay, either I'm in a trade or you know what, I fat fingered an exit and I flattened my trade, or I screwed up my stop and so I'm flat and I'm waiting.
Hmm.
And that urge surfing of sitting there and watching the price action and knowing that my job is to do nothing. Oh, dude, for an ADD kid, um, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I still got some work to do on that.
And I really hope that I have not butchered my descriptions of process and
I think
too
we hit the
badly.
key points. I think you did a good job of explaining, because I think the things to take away is just how the more well defined that plan becomes, the more faith you're going to have in it, the easier it is to have discipline to stick with it.
Mhm.
And I think that's where my issues have been rooted in, is not having that plan well defined. I've been saying that for probably the last
Mhm.
year and a half or so.
Well, and it's a lot easier to have that discipline when you have a mentor and you have other um and, almost like desk mates.
The accountability has been, I've
Right? Well,
done,
you have other people in the group that you're all working on this together. So you
yeah,
kind
and
of
I've
have a little
been,
bit of group accountability about,
feel like
oh,
I've been kind of withdrawing more into myself and not taking advantage of the group as much as I used to lately. And I think that's a good point you made there. Like we were
mhm,
talking about earlier, like the going through and doing the mind metric stuff, like with you, I think would be really helpful for me, to give me like somebody to compete with, almost like real. It
yeah.
kind of makes it almost like, oh, did you do your work? Okay, well, shit, he did his. Now I guess I better go do mine. Otherwise, I'm falling behind. Like it gives me something to measure myself against, and I need some other people like pushing me. Is doing it for myself. Apparently, I'm not very good at doing things for just myself.
Yeah, I struggle.
Yeah.
I definitely struggle. Um,
Well,
I mean, the biggest takeaways are the things that I said I really
yeah.
wanted to go in, which is learn a new process and changing contracts, changing that contracts isn't the right word, but you know, I've been a dyed in the wool hardcore NQ trader for the last 3 years,
And you're trading
and
ES now with me, right?
for me to flip a switch and okay, in the fall I was doing a lot of trading both ES and Q side
Yeah,
by side with Aaron, which was fun. Um, and but for me to like turn off NQ, and I literally had to just turn it off my screen
I
so
had
that I'm
to.
only watching ES. That was huge. But I think that's also something that's helped me set aside some of my old bad habits because I'm setting aside some of those NQ habits to learn better habits in ES.
See, I think I
Um,
had a kind of a similar issue. I quit watching NQ because I felt like the volatility and the increased price action was causing me to get more tilted, or was causing me to not trade my
mhm.
plan as often as I wanted to. But now I look back at ES, and ES is trading like NQ like now. I think that was part of my struggles the past couple weeks, is that like I'm not allowed to look at the 30-second chart anymore. Like that's not the
Oh.
chart I want to stare at, right? I want to be at 5 minute time frame or higher. Well, now my
Mhm.
5 minute looks like my 30-second chart. So that
Mhm.
just kind of clicked in my head recently. Like, oh,
Oh,
okay. Well,
especially with this volatility.
like I
Oh
need
my
to zoom
god.
out more. Like I need to be on probably a 30-minute chart at this point. And man, that's hard to slow yourself down that much and take yourself
Yeah,
back out of it.
or lay all your levels out on your 4-hour chart and have your 4-hour chart on one side and your 5-minute chart or your 15-minute chart. For me, it's a 5-minute, but you know, 5-minute chart on next to it,
Yeah.
so that you can keep an eye on the big picture macro structure on the 4-hour chart and the little wiggles in the 5-minute chart.
I feel like we're getting ready to touch into some good, bad, and ugly here, so I think we might as well just embrace it, huh?
Oh, oh man.
So I think we've been kind of touching on this for a bit here, but being slow to adjust has been kind of my issue this whole past, actually since the I went on vacation, really, which
Mhm.
I never fully got a chance to adjust to the new administration trading regime that we're in.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't trading during the last Trump turn, so I didn't get to see how this was then. And
You and me both.
having having 2 trips. I mean, I've been like out of the past month, I've been gone for 2 weeks of that. Like that's not
Oh, wow.
really a good way to learn how to adapt to a new volatility regime. And so I don't think I've given myself enough time to kind of adapt and adjust. And that's my plan for next week is to not trade and just spend that time going through replaying charts and making the adjustments that I need to make in order to be successful. And
Hmm.
so that's the bad. Maybe even it's probably borderline ugly because you're doing the same thing over and over again, having terrible results and not making changes. Like that's definition of insanity.
Yeah.
On the
And,
good
and and
side,
sometimes you have to shake yourself up. That was part of the reason I finally gave
yeah,
myself permission to join Pax's group. It's like, okay, I need something to agitate that learning process.
right. I'm not looking to strip everything down and tear it down to the
Mm-mm.
ground and start over, but I am looking to put a little more structure or some definitions to something that I am seeing that is having success, and that's what I want to
Hmm.
lean into that more. I want to define that better. And so, yeah, I'm on the same boat. I'm not looking to tear it all down and nuke it to the ground like we always like we used to do in the past. But
Yeah.
I did, however, and this is my good. I did have the urge today actually to delete the lockouts and just completely nuke everything. I was looking for the setting. I was about to, and I was like, wait a minute. Let's take a step back here. What am I doing? Why am I doing that? Why am I feeling the need to tear everything down or just blow it all up?
Yeah.
I stepped back and, I did a good job of keeping all of that to the prop account that I've been trading, at least. Like my live account was never in jeopardy, but still, like to be that close to it again is kind of a little bit terrifying, but it also feels really good
Yeah.
to see that I can pull myself back from that and not give in to it.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yep. I did give in to that a little bit in my sim account,
Yeah.
which is not an excuse because your brain doesn't really know the difference between trading sim and trading real and trading prop or combine.
But if you're going to do it
Um,
somewhere, at least it's there.
yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, cool. I let off that steam, but I can't. I have to learn to. I can't let it off there.
Yeah. The worst thing that can happen for you is when you let off that steam and keep hitting green trades over and over and over again every time you do it to the point where you're like, well, shit, I should just trade this. And then it goes
Yeah.
to shit.
Yeah, I did have one day where I did some thankfully I locked myself out of the other accounts and I was on full sim and I went full tilt and I went down 50 grand on my sim account.
Ooh, that's impressive.
Yeah, it
That's
was.
pretty good. Yeah, that's
What's
a high score.
what's yeah. What's more terrifying is that I actually got it back up to 0 on the day. And I ended up the day my end of day result was like $500.
How many contracts were you trading?
I was all the way up to the max they would let you do, which was 15 ES at some point at
Okay,
different
Sierra
points.
lets you do 1,000 lot clips, or you can do
Oh,
as
no,
many as you
no, this
want.
was
Yeah,
this is this was Top Steps
I'd say,
practice sim account.
I've tried just clicking the button on 10,000 just to see what it would do on Sim. But then I learned really quick that you don't mess around with Sim, like changing your bracket orders like that, because the first time you accidentally clip into 6 when you mean to clip into 6 micros and you get into 6 minis, like you'll shit a brick.
Yep. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. But yeah, so my performance curve on that day is hilarious because it's like, oh, red, deep red, deep red, deep red, deep red, and then it comes all the way back and has this like big spike back up to like green, and there's just like this little sliver of green where I ended the day.
I
So
almost care. You
yeah,
might want to look a little bit closer into that run up. 'Cause I remember 2 years also talking about the best day, the best performance he ever had was actually recovering a portion of a red day. It wasn't even a day that ended green. He just talks about a run he had where he was down, I think like 40K or something to start the day off of like a something that happened, either
yeah, like
fat
an
finger
overnight
or
fat finger. Yeah.
yeah, something along those lines, and like to claw back almost all of it, not even all of it. Like he points to that
Hmm.
as like one of his best stretches.
No, I
I
mean
find that
that's
fascinating. That's process,
that's your story of survivors.
right?
DCP has shared in several spaces. He had a similar issue where he had a bad trade, and he was down $100,000 in a day and traded it back that same day.
God
Um,
damn.
but for every, for the 2 people we know that have done that,
Yeah.
there's how many hundreds that washed out.
You don't hear those
So
stories. Yeah,
no,
because they're not around to tell the tale.
no.
All right. Anything good out of your week you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, learning that process, I did. I had a couple of really phenomenal days
Mm-hmm.
in multiple funded accounts, and um really happy with those. And then I think the other really good thing is that I have obeyed my daily loss limits.
Yeah,
I
me too.
have
Me too. It's the one good thing I've done all week.
I've not regretted it, of because I'm going into the day and I'm trying to remind myself, I'm like, I have to slow down. I have to slow down. And on days where I just hit that daily loss limit really quick, it's because I didn't slow down and I improvised. I
Mm-hmm.
did not follow my process. And so for me, I look at that as a reward of, you know what? I didn't follow my process. I got my fingers slapped, and okay.
Yeah, but your fingers were slapped. They weren't cut off. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
What's the thing that Bob always says? Our job is to make sure we're here to trade tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like that's our main job.
Yeah. Yeah. Always trade for tomorrow. I mean, that there's all those great pit sayings, ride or ride out,
It's
trade
only
for
it's
tomorrow.
only 2 traders. Traders that trade today and traders that trade tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Yeah, that's been something that's been the one like takeaway for me too this week, as I can point to, is I can say I didn't exceed my personal loss limit. Like not even the max
Yeah, my
allowable
personal
one.
one. Yeah.
I put
Oh,
mine
yeah.
in place, and that's the one I didn't exceed. And
Yeah.
man, I tell you, the temptation was very strong this week.
Yeah, I mean, most of my accounts, my maximum loss limit is to take the account to 0.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that would be really bad.
Ugh.
So for me to have my little $450 limit in there feels pretty good.
I try to give myself like 10 points ES per trade total, and then I get 4 of those. If I lose more than that, then that's it.
Yeah. And that's what I really love about this process that I'm learning.
Yeah.
It speaks to me very well, which is the scratch
Mm-hmm.
of I used to be really, really good at it, and it's bothering me. I'm having a hard time learning how to scratch again. So
Yeah,
I've
I've
actually
gotten really bad at that.
those days where I bonk out, I put myself into sim. That's one of the reasons
Yeah.
I ended up down 50 grand in sim, is because I was sitting there effing around in sim and full ES contracts when I should have been in Mez. But one of the things that I was doing was intentionally just entering a trade and then trying to go to break even as fast as possible. It's like enter, go, break even.
Oh, so you're actually working on something.
I was working on my
If
scratch.
you're working on an actual skill, then if you're doing that, then who cares what the dollar amount lost?
Yeah, I was working on my scratch. Well, I ended up on those because then I'd get bored, or I'd get frustrated, or I'd get amused, and I'd just enter a trade, and then I'd take off the stops and walk away. And yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, do those things that everybody says never ever do, and it's like, oh yeah, that really is
sometimes
that bad.
Sometimes you have to do the things that everyone tells you not to do just to see why it doesn't work. But at least you're doing those in sim, not doing those in the live account. We can keep those in sim.
I've done that kind of stupid crap enough in funded accounts.
Make sure you're in sim when you do those things. All right. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for today's episode, though. So please join me in thanking Bear for their contributions tonight. You can do that by clicking on links in the show notes. You can visit vantatrading.com to help support the show. You can visit bandatraderspodcast.com to stay up to date with everything we have to offer. When you're finished with all that, catch up on your presidential history with Eric and I on the Buck Starts Here. We just got started on James Monroe last week. I'll be back soon with another exciting episode. But till that day, like, share, subscribe to all the things, and have a green week.
Woohoo.
This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute financial or investment advice and should not be construed as such. The hosts, guests, and contributors of this podcast are not licensed financial advisors, brokers, or professionals. Any trading or investment decisions made based on the content of this podcast are solely at the listener's discretion and risk. Trading and investing in financial markets carry inherent risks, and past performance is not indicative of future results. Listeners should conduct their own research and seek advice from qualified financial professionals before making any financial decisions. The views, opinions, and information shared in this podcast are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of the podcast creators or associated organizations. Produced by China Shop Productions.